At this point, you should have 5 to 6 inferences about your character and gather textual evidence for each of your inferences. What you're going to do today is you're going to take the inference that you think is the strongest and you're going to write a 4 to 6 sentence explanation explaining how your textual evidence supports your inference. So I'm going to model this skill today with Sandra Cisneros' Four Skinny Trees. Remember, this is the poem about the little girl who looks to the trees that are growing through concrete when life feels too hard. In the last stanza, she writes, "When I am too sad and too skinny to keep keeping, when I am a tiny thing against so many bricks, then it is I look at trees." So from that evidence, I can infer that there are moments in the little girl's life when life feels really hard. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my inference and I'm going to turn it into a claim statement. So a claim is the argument that you are making in your paragraph. This is what you have to prove by the end of your explanation. You need to prove that this is true. So what I'm going to do to turn my inference into a claim statement is that I'm going to cross off that I can infer that. So I'm going to cross off I can infer that, and then I need to capitalize that T, right? So I'm making it a sentence. So my claim statement now is that there are moments in the little girl's life when life feels really hard. So my job today is to make sure that I prove to you that this is true about this little girl. So I'm going to now take my evidence and I'm going to write my evidence just below my claim. So I know that you've already written your evidence down, but I'm going to ask for you to write it down again just underneath your claim statement. Remember that you need to have the author's last name and the page number just after your textual evidence. So let's get to the hard part. Today, your job is to write your explanation. You need to really prove to me that the evidence you chose supports your inference. It supports the claim that you are making in your paragraph. So in your explanation, you are going to first explain the evidence in your own words. Make sure that you explain and really understand what your evidence is saying. Second, you're going to explain the specific clues in the evidence and what they make you think, right? What did the specific clues make you think? And then lastly, most important, you're going to explain how the evidence helped you to get to that inference. What was your thinking when you read that textual evidence that made you make that inference? Really, really explain your thinking. Your explanation needs to be 4 to 6 sentences long. So let's get started. I'm going to start by explaining my evidence in my own words. So my evidence, remember, is that when I am too sad or too skinny to keep keeping, when I am a tiny thing against so many bricks, then it is I look at the trees. So if I was writing this in my own words, I might write something like, there are moments in her life, in this little girl's life, when everything feels too heavy or difficult to keep going, right? She says, keep keeping, right? It's too difficult to keep going. So now that I've explained my evidence in my own words, I need to choose the specific clues in the evidence that really support my inference, that made me think that inference was true. So the clues that I'm going to really talk about today, I was really struck by this too sad, when she feels like she's too sad or too skinny, right, to keep going. And then also when she feels like a tiny thing against so many bricks, when she feels like life is just too heavy to bear. So I want to start with this too sad and too skinny. So I'm going to write something like, when she explains that that sometimes she is too sad or too skinny, it hints that she has a tough life and that there are times when it feels too much, right? The fact that she uses the word too twice shows me that it is too much at times. So let's look at this tiny thing against so many bricks. I might write something like, she describes herself as tiny and like she's against so many bricks, which makes me think that she feels small and helpless at times. So now my job is to really make sure that I explain all of the steps that I took in my thinking to make that inference. It makes me think that sometimes life is just too heavy for her to carry on her own, right? The too many bricks is too heavy for her to carry on her own. In these moments, she needs a reminder to have hope. So here's my explanation. It's 5 sentences long. In this explanation, I'm first explaining my evidence in my own words. I'm explaining the clues that I used in the evidence. And then I'm really making sure that I explain my process, my thinking in coming to this inference. So your job right now is you need to choose one of your inferences that you made yesterday. And you're going to write a paragraph explaining how your textual evidence supports your inference. Make sure that you have claim, evidence, and 4 to 6 sentences of explanation. What I'm going to be really looking at today is that explanation. When you're finished writing your paragraph, what you're going to do is you're going to continue your thinking work from yesterday. On Monday is going to be your first book group. And in your book group, you're going to need to have really strong inferences about your character and lots of evidence. So you're going to continue reading, making your inferences, and gathering textual evidence. Okay, get started. Really explain your thinking.